University of York, under the supervision of Dr. Colin Morgan and Dr. Michelle Alexander. My research is focusing on assessing, today I'm going to talk about my PhD research, some about hand in my thesis, so any feedback is more than welcome. The aim of my research is to evaluate the impact of different media for communicating archaeological research to the wider public. The main concept is for the archaeologists to essentially be able to do that themselves. Let's say they want to quickly engage a local community or stakeholders, or to inform the local public about what they are doing. So this is to keep in mind, something to keep in mind. So essentially, within this aim, I'm trying to obviously to emit knowledge, talk about the past. My case study is Grave Circle A, which we will see in a moment. Another aim of my research is to discuss the ethics about the handling and the study of human remains, to decolonize the history of excavations, and to dismantle the authoritative voice of the archaeologist, and to explain to everyone that unfortunately we don't always have the answers about the past, despite what people normally think about us. So methodologically, my research is based epistemologically on methodological anarchism, combined with post-humanism feminism. It's a practice-based research, meaning that I have created the media myself, without employing, professionals to do it for me. Of course, I had people to help me with that, but they're not like hiring professionals. I have also designed and implemented the experiment about those media, and I'm following a mixed methods. I'm following a mixed methods approach. Essentially, I'm collecting both qualitative and quantitative data. It is interdisciplinary, so I'm bringing in aspects from digital archaeology, public archaeology, archaeology of personhood, archaeogaming, and storytelling. Regarding the media, I have used different tools to write the story, each one story in 3 different forms. The tools that I have used are osteological reports, they are very recent, archaeological reports in the form of the original publications by Schliemann, combined with Sampatakou, the other archaeologist's diary, which was recently discovered, along with material culture from the graves, inscriptions on linear tablets, and the Homeric epics. So my case study is Grave Circle A at Mycenae. A little bit about chronology, without tiring you much. The shaft graves are dated back in the late Helladic I period. So essentially this one is a transitional period between the Middle Helladic and the Mycenaean. So the graves are not Mycenaean, but the encirclement around them, it is, along with the fortifications of the citadel. So if you fancy to know more about that, we can talk, but that's not the purpose of this talk today. So you can see Greece there, with the point is Mycenae, and next to it is a footprint of actually the fortified citadel, and with, again, the dot is Grave Circle A. And then a closer look at the grave circle. It contains 6 graves, very richly furnished, as you most probably know already. And my case study is about the individual with the code name MYC15, buried in grave 5. But again, you can see. You can see there. So this individual has changed many code names because the excavations are very old. They date back in the 19th century, and you can see them marked with the letter, the Greek letter Tav. And this is a page from Stamataki's diary. This individual was buried with the famous so-called Agamemnon's mask. So my story covers 3 periods. It has information about the late Helladic I, talking about the life and the death of the individual. It's a first-person narrative, so essentially it's more from the side of the individual. It also contains information about the 19th century excavation. Specifically, I'm focusing on the relationship between Sampatakou and Sliman. Sampatakou was the Greek archaeologist who was appointed by the Greek government to supervise Sliman during the excavations. As the later didn't have a great reputation after the excavations in Troy. So as you can imagine, the relationship between the two men was quite rocky, at the least. So I'm trying to bring in this narrative, because even if you have a quick look at the Wikipedia page, you won't find much about Sampatakou, unfortunately. And then the other part, another aspect of the story is the 21st century, when the remains of Grave Circle A were rediscovered after being hidden for many years in the basement of the National Archaeological Museum in Athens to escape the Nazis after the World War II. So this ignited a big, let's say, re-examination of the bones in 2007. So this particular individual has been examined, essentially, the remains of this person have been examined 3 times already, and they lost some parts, or they have put some parts of the skeleton in exhibition. So that's another thing that I'm also talking about. Now about the story, I have 3 main characters: the individual, who essentially tries to remember who they are, as every time someone is examining the remains, they lose some parts of their memories, exactly as they lose some parts of their bodies, their body. Sampatakou, the Greek archaeologist, and Dr. Nafplioti, who is the osteologist who re-examined the bones in 2007 along with her team. The format of the story, I have created the same story in 3 different forms, which we'll see in a moment. A textual story with footnotes, following Alexis Boutin's example. An interactive story using twine. Amanda Stowe was very good at introducing the tool, but I believe you already know what twine is. And an immersive story using a 360 film video as a VR experience. And this is how the textual story looks like. So you can see it's a bit of text, and then it's a massive text of footnotes. So essentially, I'm using them to explain exactly what we know, how do we know it, what kind of information they carry, if they are from the osteological reports, if they are completely fictive, and trying to be very upfront about it. To the people. About the game, as I said, I used wine, which personally, it reminds me of these books that they give you options like, if you want the bad wolf to eat the little Red Riding Hood, just go to page 45. So essentially, it gives some options to the user, but not much. You need to follow a quite linear, I would say, story. Though it was very helpful in my situation because I was trying to talk about the uncertainty about how this individual died, it was very useful that I had 3 different options as a potential way that this individual died, with obviously the conclusion that we don't know. So this came across very well. The tools that I used to create, it's the Twine platform, which is free and open access, Canva, YouTube, Epidemic Sound for my sounds, and Wix.com to upload some stuff that I needed there. You've already seen the interface. It's like a web. It gives some options and paths. And this is how it looks like. So the user has some options, and they can explore or skip parts. And I have also included both diaries, Sampatakou diary with all the archaeological information, and Dr. Navpliotis' diary with all the osteological information. So essentially, people can access both and make up their own minds about what happened. Regarding the VR video experience, so initially I thought to create an interactive game using Blender and trying to create the whole environment very, very interactive. However, I soon realized that this would go outside of the scope of my research, as it would take a long time to do it and long training for me personally. So I opted for a 360 film instead, shoot with a 360 Insta camera, and then I edited with Steam VR and Viveport to make it compatible with a VR headset. I used Premiere Pro, which is not free, but I had access to it, and it was a very good tool. Insta360 has its own software, which I believe is free, I'm sure, I think it is. And I made it compatible with both Vive headset and Oculus headset. So it looks like this.
Hey, you, over there.
The black screen is intentional, so the person who is wearing it begins with a black environment. I haven't actually used the actual remains, obviously.
Yes, you. You've been looking at me, or what is left of me, a while now. You are the only person in the room. The lady's on her lunch break. Stop staring, for Polly's sake. You creep me out. I'm lying here on this cold examination table to be re-examined for the third time.
So yes, that was it's essentially people can walk around in the lab environment, they can look around, but they cannot interact with anything. So it's purely immersive and not interactive. The experiment that I designed, it was both with questionnaires and interviews, and it was conducted in 3 countries, the UK, Malta, and Greece. And about the process, essentially I have groups of individuals, 3 people each time. They are treated in a pre-questionnaire, then each one of them experienced 1 medium, then they were treated in a post-questionnaire, then they experienced the rest of the media, and then we gathered all for an interview to discuss their impressions. So I have both qualitative and quantitative data, and I ended up having 3 data sets. I have the interviews and the metadata notes, they are very helpful at evaluating the impact of the story. Then I have pre and post questionnaires, which allows me to compare any previous knowledge with any new knowledge acquired, and the post questionnaires, which are very useful to understand everything about the new knowledge that people acquired during the stories. I analyzed this data using Excel and producing tables to help me understand which was better, which medium was better to achieve my research questions. And regarding my qualitative research, I analyzed the data using thematic analysis, going through the suggested steps. Of course, since I have done the experiment myself and transcribed the notes and everything, and coded the data using NVivo, the first 2 steps were a back and forth situation, which helped me a lot with familiarizing myself with the data. So I ended up with some themes. Regarding the media, apparently Twine seems to be the most effective tool to communicate research of the kind that I am doing to the wider public, since people consider it very interactive and they like the interactive part of it. Some other very interesting themes that they came up in the discussion with the participants was the first encounter bias, and the suggestion that the combination of media might have actually worked equally well. and that authenticity is quite important for the participants. They did like the aspect that part of the stories were authentic and that they could know which was fictive and which not. Regarding the ethics of handling human remains, this also came up in the discussions, obviously. The participants seemed quite worried about how we study and we handle human remains, and then ended up suggesting that most probably it's not a very good idea to have human remains in display as artifacts in museums. Another interesting thing that came up was the endangerment of artifacts. So people were worried about how archaeologists are handling the archaeological data during and after the excavations, and the importance of keeping an archaeological diary. And interestingly enough, they didn't focus on the aspect of the story that I wanted to communicate, like the mistreatment of Sampatakou by Schliemann, but they rather focused on the potential harm that the rocky relationship could have to archaeological knowledge, which was very interesting. And lastly, about colonial attitudes within archaeology. That was a very interesting topic because it was interesting to study and observe how people reacted towards that, as I had participants from countries that they were formerly colonized, and I also had participants from countries that they historically have been considered Western colonial powers. So that's me. Thank you very much.